Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It's time for a little bit of Orange Bloods Live. I am Jeff Ketchum. Do me a solid. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. Get notifications. We're talking Texas football. The Texas players came out en masse today to speak to the media. Kind of changed the entire scope of my show. I was going to do a whole lot of Steve Sarkisian reaction from yesterday. I will go into that, but Arch Manning spoke to the media today. And yes, Michelle, you come for my incredible personality, but you stay for the Arch propaganda, because that is what we'll have a little bit of today. He spoke to the media. Cam Coleman spoke to the media. I think Ty Anthony Smith and Rasheem Biles spoke to the media. Let me look at the full list of audio that Anwar sent. Jelani McDonald and Connor Robertson also spoke with the media. So a lot to unpack on the player front. Let's start with Arch. Let's start with the propaganda. I think, number one, Arch comes out and says that in his mind, he feels 100%, and if there was a game today, he would be playing in it. Michelle, that feels like propaganda. Because if he was at 100%, truly at 100%, he'd just be practicing fully without limitations. But I think we all love that Arch tells us that he's feeling 100%. I just don't have any anxiety about Arch, really. I agree with Anwar Richardson. He does need as many reps with the team as much as he needs. My thing with Arch is less, the Arch injury is less about whether I think Arch is going to be healthy. I've got concerns about Trevor Gooseby and the shoulder and just what's going on there. I don't know. Like, I'm a little more worried about that than I am with Arch Manning. The thing with Arch is not about Arch. I've said this before. It's just about the totality of everything this spring that's been missing on the offensive side of the ball. And I will circle back to that because I think Steve Sarkisian made a real honest confession yesterday about this very topic that kind of dovetails into exactly where my concerns are globally with Arch Manning. But, Arch says he feels good. Feels like if there was a game today that he would be playing, boom. I don't know that there were more things that were said, but to hear Arch just come out and kind of declare himself fully fit, if you will, it's April, man. It's April 15th. If Arch is saying he feels 100% and it's Arch 15th, then we're good. We'll get to the summer. We'll get to August. Arch should be good. And everybody else now will follow. Other things that he said that were somewhat notable, he talked about leadership today. And I don't know what it means. Chad Hastings and I, who will have a show come out a little bit later on this afternoon here on Orange Bloods Live, talked about, not even in this context, Sark had the Arch's leadership was something that popped up yesterday in Sark's press conference, kind of just with, does it hurt that to not be fully engaged in all team workouts the way that, if he were fully released, that he would. Arch today said he kind of looks at last season and as a tale of two halves. He feels like he wasn't a good leader, that he was pressing. He said he was pissed for the first half of last season. Had some sort of, and he didn't really get into too much detail in terms of like what was the come to Jesus moment, but he decided I was going to start having fun. He changed his attitude, and obviously he finishes the season really, really well, including a bowl game performance that really goes down as one of the best we've probably seen in Austin ever. Outside of the Vince Young Rose Bowls, kind of hard pressed to point to a performance that is quite as good as what Arch did in the bowl game. What a great lasting memory. Beyond that, he and Cam Coleman, they got a little thing cooking. He talked about Jermaine Bishop a little bit, and that Jermaine Bishop, his arrival is impressive. That if you watch Jermaine Bishop as a high school player, hard not to notice just how dynamic and great he was as a high school player. I thought one of the real interesting things, and this became a little bit of a theme in all of the press conferences today, was that Arch still gets parking tickets. They ask Rasheem Biles what the biggest adjustment that he had to make with regards to his, just, now you're in the SEC. Now you're playing at Texas. You were on the East Coast. Now you're here. What has been the biggest adjustment that you've had to make? And Rasheem Biles said that the parking tickets on campus. And as somebody that has had a boot put on his car by UTPD before because of like one unpaid parking ticket, I feel you, Rasheem. And I laugh that Arch has had to confess that, I don't know, he's got like a running tab. I feel you. I think it's, as the generations go by, it feels like the only true real connection between old and young at the University of Texas that you could find a 70-year-old and you could find an 18-year-old, and they might not agree on a whole lot. But the one thing that, if they went to UT, the one thing that they will be able to 1000% find complete unison, lockstep, arm in arm. They hate the UTPD. They hate the tickets. They hate the boots. They hate everything about it. I think one of the greatest things, I didn't leave Texas with a degree. They didn't get a ton of my money. I was there for 4 years, but it just never felt very expensive to go to UT at the time because I lived in Hyde Park, so it just was a short drive. The best thing about my entire University of Texas academic experience, and I don't even know if this still matters in 2026. Like, I don't know if the parking labels are the same. But when I was a student from 95 through 99, because I was a member of the media, I had A and V parking. V was the big one. V is V for visitor, which means all over campus while I was a student, I would park in front of every building, in front of every class I had. It felt like driving a Lamborghini to a nice club and they just leave your car up front. You just get treated differently because you're special. When I was a student at Texas, I did not leave with a degree. I did not get good grades. I don't think I ever got an A in any class I ever took, but I had A parking and I had V parking, and I didn't get any tickets. The only tickets I ever got at Texas were post-student career as a member of the media. They'll get you for anything. They'll get you for anything. But while I was a student for 4 years, every day, let me tell you why I didn't graduate. In part, my parking was so good. And this, I'm going to make Rasheem Biles and Arch Manning. If you're watching this video right now, guys, hey, man, sometimes you get the breaks. And I was so spoiled with parking at Texas that I would drive to class. If I had a 1 o'clock class and I was watching Days of Our Lives, I would leave around 12:50. Give myself 10 minutes to drive from Hyde Park to campus. That's how good my parking was. I would 10 minutes, right? If one of the 2 or so V parking spots that were in front of every building were taken, I convinced myself that that was just the world and the universe telling me that they didn't want me at school today, and I would just go home. Oh, other things said today. Sorry, had to. S. Ron, why would you do this? Why are you in the chat doing this to me? Let me go down memory lane. I can't feel good about Liverpool. Let me tell you what. Let me tell you what the epiphany that I had yesterday. Up until this season, I've been a Liverpool fan since 2014, 2015. Jurgen Klopp comes in and takes the job 2015, 2016. And for the last decade, Liverpool has been my escape. They have brought me so much happiness, so many smiles. They've been so fantastic. They brought me through an entire decade of my life and like have worked as they're my escape. They always bring happiness until this year. And I really realized yesterday they lose the Champions League. I mean, they didn't deserve to go through. They went about as far as they probably deserve to go. But I realized, like, I can't take it for granted. I literally had a sports team that for a decade was my escape. Man, the only thing I try to do with the Dallas Cowboys is escape from them. They're not my escape. I'm trying to escape. I'm a Phillies fan, a Sixers fan. I cover Texas football. But for the last decade, Liverpool's been there for me. But I realized yesterday they have not been that for me for the last 12 months, and that void has not been replaced, if I'm being completely honest. $5 super chat coming in from Horn3363. I'll do this, and then I'll get back to the news and notes from today, including breaking news on a portal visitor in football that's coming in this weekend. A lot of stuff to get into today, not just my parking exploits when I was a student at UT 30 years ago. Horn, sorry, the yard guys here, my dogs are going to bark. It's just what it is. Horn33 for $5 says, I just can't get excited knowing the poor leadership at offensive line. Pre-snap penalties, 2-3 years straight, all developed portal out this year was a waste. I think, Horn 3363, you're well within your right to take a little bit of a wait and see approach to the offensive line. I think on paper, this offensive line, left to right, position by position, all 5 positions, and I think you'd even include the tight end in there, in the running game, certainly. I think they're improved on paper. I think this year's version of Gooseby is better than last year's version of Gooseby if, he's healthy. I think Lawrence Seymour is better than Cole Hudson, but I don't know that. I do think Connor Robertson will be better this year than he was last year. And you kind of go down the line, right? But they haven't played at all together. The 5 that will be counted on to beat Ohio State haven't practiced together yet. Even less practicing than the quarterback that will be playing against Ohio State has had with all of his new teammates. Kyle Flood's got some proving to do. I don't know that I'm as despondent about this as you seem to be with the pre-snap penalties and all of the issues. And, I think one of the comments that Arch made today that was kind of, was like just notable, was that they brought up Cam Coleman's recruitment, and he gave Ryan Wingo a lot of the credit for the recruitment of Cam Coleman, saying that while Cam Coleman was being hosted by Ryan Wingo, he was out at dinner with a couple of offensive linemen that they were hosting from the portal. I would 1,000% assume are the 2 Michigan guys, Sprague and the other guy. And neither guy came. So, come on, Arch. Really needed you to land the plane on that one. But yeah, they tried to do more in the portal and they just didn't pull it off. It is one of the only areas, I think, in addition to linebacker, and we'll get to that in a second. I think they would have liked to have done more. They wanted to do more. They tried to, the Michigan guys, they offered as much as $600,000 more to come play at Texas. The numbers I had heard was that Texas was in the 1.5 million range, and Michigan did not get to $1 million, is what I was told. That's all unofficial. How the hell would I know the specific numbers? But I've heard some specific talk about that. They said no. They swung and missed on a couple of other guys. They weren't able to get all the guys in the portal that they wanted. They think they've done enough, and we'll see. But yeah, it's not about the leadership of the offensive line that I'm worried about. Horn 3363, the leadership's fine. It's the quality that I'm worried about and the depth of the quality. What happens if there's an injury? One of the things we know about this camp is that nobody's really stepped up. There's no Trevor Gooseby from 2024 who you're thinking to yourself, well, if either Banks or Cam Williams get hurt for a week or two, we'll be fine. There's nobody like that. No one has stepped up like that yet. But leadership, man, if that's completely directed at Kyle Flood, okay. I mean, 2 years ago, Texas had, regardless of how faint this praise might be, they had the second best offensive line that I have seen Texas have since 2005. So if we were to the last 20 years, 2005, and then maybe like that 2006 group combined, because there was a lot of crossover there. And look, you replaced Jonathan Scott with Tony Hills. So you could take those 2 years, and then I think the 2025 offensive line that Kyle Flood put together, it was only 2 seasons ago that it was the second best. Now, was it good enough to beat Georgia? No. Was it good enough to beat Ohio State? No. So improvements are needed, but it was good enough to beat a lot of other really good teams with really good defensive fronts. A lot of dudes on that A&M team that offensive line whipped into submission in College Station. A lot of those guys are going to be playing on Sundays, and Texas did the thing. They just weren't Georgia, Ohio State level. We'll move on. I could get lost inside of press conference stuff, and I'll circle back around to that in a second. I want to get into the portal edition that the Longhorns are considering. Before we do that, that's a perfect time for me to just stop for a second and pay a bill, because I'm teasing you with the very next thing I'm going to talk about, and it is Sark said they were done in the portal, and then they added a guy, and now they may add another guy. Stay tuned. Let me tell you about the title sponsor of this show, Texas Card House. 6 locations all over the state of Texas. You know by now, there's one in Austin. There's one in the Rio Grande Valley. There's 2 in the Houston area, Houston and Spring, and then there's 2 in the Metroplex, Dallas and Las Colinas. Tournament play, cash games, whatever it is that you want, go in. If you've never played, just say, hey, Orange Blood sent me. They're going to give you a 1-month free club membership, which means you're good. You have the membership that allows you in the club. 2 hours of free poker is that cash in your hand. That's like a $20 chip that you're going to be able to take to the table. Yeah, man, go play some cards in person. Get out, see some people. But if you're a recluse, or you just want to be around people, or you just want to fill the time in your day, you download the app, Hijack Poker, scan that QR code right there. Got to be inside the state of Texas, kind of a critical little note. But if you sign up while inside the state of Texas and you're playing inside the state of Texas, you get a $20 sign-up bonus. Again, they're trying to give you money. You don't even have to say Orange Bloods. You just have to scan, download it today. Get your hookup, Hijack Poker. And, of course, it kind of just depends. If you want to play on your phone and you want to do it on your desktop, Hijack. If you just like to look into people's eyes while they're wearing sunglasses, in person, Texas Card House. It's that simple. All right, so let's talk about – so credit to Pete Nakos of On3. He reported within the last hour that Texas is going to host a name at linebacker before the end of the week that I'm fairly familiar with. Michigan State transfer Darius Snow is going to visit this weekend, according to a source of Pete Nakos. This is a Texas boy. Texas boy who is the son of Eric Snow, former 76ers point guard, former NBA point guard. He's got some NFL pedigree. That is not really what Darius Snow is as a college football player. I believe Jason said he's getting ready to be a 7th-year guy. He's in his 20s, not his 30s, if you were out there wondering. 20s, but in his career, 161 career tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, a sack, 6'1", 230. He's a pure inside linebacker. To me, this makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Will Muschamp mentioned yesterday, well, I guess Thursday, that inexperience and depth were the two things that he was a little bit concerned about. If all things were being equal, he'd like another body or two, and he'd like for them to be old guys without Ty Anthony Smith and without some of the young guys being older, right? Anwar asked in our teams, do you think somebody got hurt? Is this a reaction to an injury that might have occurred yesterday in practice now that we're seeing this? I don't think so. We'll check. We will check, but this is about what Will Muschamp said. Will Muschamp last Thursday makes the admission that Rasheem Biles and Ty Anthony Smith are more alike than they're not alike. They really don't have anybody competing with Justin Cryer at that Mike linebacker position. It's kind of his spot. Tyler Atkinson, working in that spot that would primarily be a Ty Anthony Smith or Rasheem Biles place, right? He's working that will. Well, Brad Spence is at Sam, is getting a little bit of run as a backup this spring at Mike, but in reality, he's not ideal in that position. That is, none of the freshmen really fit the mold of that kind of thumper. Rocky Cummings not ready for that. So they're covering their backside this spring with Spence in that role. Darius Snow comes in, and that's his role. His role is the day he shows up, he's Justin Cryer's backup, and he's probably very Justin Cryer-ish. I don't know that Justin Cryer was going to be a starter at Florida State this year. I don't know that about Darius Snow either, but they both have played a lot of football. I would imagine the exact same things they would say about Justin Cryer, they would say about Darius Snow. He's savvy and, he knows all of the tricks. And, they say that he's a good leader. They say everything other than he's going to play in the NFL one day because he's super badass. That's not exactly what they say. There's code words for these guys. But if you're wondering why is this guy available, well, he's not so good that everybody was breaking down his doors. This is a guy that's got 1 year of eligibility left. He's looking for a perfect situation. This isn't perfect. He doesn't walk into a starting job, which is what he'll want. But if anything happens to Justin Cryer, or if he can beat out Justin Cryer, which is not exactly the same thing as beating out Ty Anthony Smith or Rasheem Biles, he gives himself a chance. So I think it's a slam dunk. This is what happens when you're at 105 and you're sitting at 90. You can get through the spring and look at your roster and go, we need somebody else. I think that what Will Muschamp told us a week ago, they need another linebacker. I think the elephant in the room here is that I don't think Tyler Atkinson is going to play a lot for Texas this year. And I think that would have stunned people at the onset of the spring because they gave Atkinson a ton of money. They pointed at him last year and said, that's the guy we want more than anybody else at linebacker in the entire country. And they went into Georgia and just took him. Everybody always, the woe is me act like Texas doesn't go into some big badass states and just take guys. And it gives you an idea of how bad they wanted him, that they went into Georgia's backyard and said, it doesn't really matter what you want. We're getting. I think there was a real sense when they did that, well, this guy's going to be one of the guys that plays a lot in 2026. But this isn't a rebuild year. They can't afford to just be having freshmen out in the linebacker core, not when the goal is the goal. And what have I told you guys about Will Muschamp's defense more than anything else? He hates mistakes. He wants to play good, sound football. He's not trying to take a bunch of chances. If you're the best blitzer in the world, but you can't hold up at the point of attack and just do the very basics, not make mistakes, he's just not got a lot of time for that. So I think you look at Atkinson, who right now in the second half of camp, it sounds like they've been playing him directly behind Biles and kind of directly behind Ty Anthony Smith will also play that position. He's not going to move to Mike. So I look at Atkinson right now, who's been okay this spring. I've heard good things. We've not gone the entire spring and not heard good things about Atkinson, but we're at the end of the spring and none of his coaches are talking about Atkinson outside of the group of other freshmen that are there, which I think is a tip of the cap to Kosi Okpala, who I think is one of the more underrated guys in this recruiting class and has had at least as good of a spring as Atkinson has at linebacker. Both of these guys getting reps with the twos. But I don't know how I'm just not sure the pathway for Atkinson. The moment Texas got Rasheem Biles was the moment that I think the trajectory for Tyler Atkinson's entire freshman season changes. Because if they don't get Biles, Atkinson's probably running with the ones a lot of this camp. I mean, imagine a world where Rasheem Biles doesn't exist. And we're going to get back to Biles in a second because I think the most interesting answer from Steve Sarkisian's press conference yesterday involved Rasheem Biles. But if there's no Biles on campus, and there's also no Ty Anthony Smith, then Texas has, and suddenly Justin Cryer at middle linebacker, without either of those two guys and no Anthony Hill, and it's like, well, what have we done at Justin Cryer? No offense to Justin Cryer, but there's not anybody watching this show that has run out to get a Justin Cryer jersey. I bet some of you got some Rasheem Biles jerseys. It seems like that'd be a cool jersey to have. Just my thoughts. If anybody looking for a tiebreaker on whose jersey you should get for this season, I think a Biles linebacker jersey sounds dope. If this spring it was just Cryer and Atkinson and Spence, well, the numbers are low. And the other transfer that they brought in that they've taken a little bit of a chance with, the Marcus Boswell kid, who's a local kid who played MAC football, has made no impact since he's been here. You'd be looking at that, I think, and wondering, why did we waste our time there? We need help now. I think the Darius Snow kid from Michigan State makes a lot of sense. I think there's a question mark right now in the middle of that Texas defense is what happens if Justin Cryer gets hurt? And that is weirdly not a question that today I think Texas fans would want to answer. There's no real second choice behind Justin Cryer at that specific linebacker spot. The make and models are different everywhere else. And if Brad Spence were really that guy, he'd be that guy. Brad Spence would be the starter if he was better than Justin Cryer at that specific job, but he's not. So what Darius Snow allows you to do is you say, well, what's our Justin Cryer backup plan? Darius Snow. When we were like, well, what is Darius Snow? He's basically Justin Cryer. Oh. So we're not great at Mike, but the two guys we have at Mike are both serviceable. Yes. Not serviceable and, oh crap, we're in trouble. No, serviceable and serviceable. I think if you're Texas and you're as talented as you are everywhere else, you can probably get by. Mike linebacker is always one of those places you can probably get by at this level still with just rock steady. Someone who I would always make jokes when Tyson King was a linebacker here like 30 years ago because he'd make like 120 tackles in a season, but it always felt like they were down the field, that he was always chasing rather than he was running uphill rather than downhill, but he still made tackles. There was still a steadiness there of, I might not make the tackle where you want Derek Johnson to make the tackle, but I'm still making a tackle. I think there's some of that in the current linebacking core in the middle. They don't have a standout. They don't have anybody ready-made in recruiting that was able to just slide in, pop in, and be that guy. It's not what Rasheem Biles is either. And I wonder if they even really felt like it was a need in the portal. Anyway, like I said, it's a hole. I think the coaches have talked about it. They've been pretty open about we would like our linebacker position to be a little older and a little bit more depth. And I see zero downside into bringing Michigan State linebacker Darius Snow in, who obviously would have entered the portal in January and not found a home. 6'1", 230. I mean, he's a rent-a-player. Perfect. He's off the books next year. You've got this scholarship room. What are we talking about? And, I would do that at a couple more positions if needed. This has always been what I've been an advocate for. You got 105. I'm not saying you even have to go up to 105, but they're at 90 right now. What we shouldn't have happen is get to the season and they just didn't have enough bodies. They've now gone through the spring. They know where they're short and where they're not. There still is a market in the portal, and I think Darius Snow is a really good example of that. This guy's not winning anybody a conference championship. That's not what you're adding here. This guy would be kind of the poster boy of what way back in the day Jason Suchamel would argue this is what really exists in the portal. This is the Michigan State version of Ray Thornton, the LSU transfer who ended up at Texas. It's a guy with a little bit of a name that people kind of remember. I remember Darius Snow as a high school prospect. Always kind of liked him. Never thought he was great, but I thought he would be probably what he's turned into be, which is pretty serviceable. 161 career tackles and 9.5 tackles for loss. That's a pretty good career in the Big Ten. And that is without a senior season. This is a guy that, had he stayed at Michigan State for one more season, he's finishing with 250 career tackles, more than double-digit tackles. I mean, that's a good player. There are still some of these guys out there. They're there. And this is where, to me, where you need a good GM. So kudos to Brandon Harris or whoever it is that's pulling the strings and identifying guys like Darius Snow, who this is about as best case scenario as you could, I think, find at linebacker. It's better than going to a JUCO route. It's better than anything else that would exist out there, is to find what is available in the marketplace. I don't know that a 20-something-year-old Big Ten experienced linebacker with 161 career tackles under his belt, I don't know that you can find anything better than that. So if I sound like I'm a big advocate for Texas bringing this kid in, I don't think it's insignificant. I think you want a Darius Snow around in case you need a Darius Snow around. And it has kind of been my philosophy with the offensive line. It's why I would have signed 3 more guys. Yeah, you don't need them until you need them. Last year, you needed them. You didn't get them. You left yourself thin. You took that chance. Never leave yourself thin again. That's been my philosophy. I don't know that that's completely UT's philosophy, but they're closer to me than they've ever been before. And I think the Darius Snow, I hope for Texas' sake, this isn't even it. Go get a safety. Go get a safety. Because even if no Xavier Field, Sammy, I don't know what's up with Jonah Williams. None of the young guys stepped up. You got 2 guys. Go find a Darius Snow at safety is what I would say. Don't just stop at Darius Snow, the linebacker. Does Michigan State have any safeties that are in the portal that had 161 career tackles under their belt? Because I'm not saying that guy needs to start at Texas. He doesn't. I'm just saying you don't necessarily want to have to put the Nick Brooks of DBs out on the field next year in a pinch because you weren't as aggressive as you needed to be. All right, real quick, I'm going to take some messages in the chat. A few more things. I did want to point out something that Sark said in the press conference yesterday that I kind of thought was important enough that I didn't think we'd be 40 minutes into the show not having gotten to yet. But It's been that kind of a day. First, let Lisa just tell you about Specs and Texas and Specs because they're a sponsor of the chat. It's the Specs chat.
This month, Specs is celebrating 64 years of cheers with our anniversary sale. Shop the lowest prices on wines, whiskeys, seltzers, snacks, and more. Because it wouldn't be Specs' birthday without big savings.
All right, we're back. Let's see. Let me go to the chat real quick. Have I missed anything? Were there any other super chats? P. Miller, I don't know what Justin Blaylock ... means. I miss Justin, man. I was young during the Justin Blaylock days. Justin and I were boys. Justin and I were boys. In fact, I mean, I helped Justin Blaylock get hooked up one time. True story. True story. He just, I don't even know how it happened, but there was a blonde at an event that was at my party, and Justin Blaylock, I think, got the digits, and I think Justin made that happen. I'm going to get Justin in trouble, but yeah, Justin and I knew each other way back in the day. Justin Blaylock ... and what? I don't mean to put Justin's business out there. I don't know that, maybe this woman's his wife or something now today. Apologies. This was a long time ago. What do we got? Hey, dude, look, keep the Crier jersey. Here's what I'd say about he's going to be on the field a lot. He is the guy on this team that is going to play way more football than anybody knows, that nobody in 100,000 people will show up to DKR. They will not know who that guy is. They'll be like, what number is Justin Crier? The reason why people bring in rosters is for Justin Crier. Who the fuck is that guy? It'll be like the fans in the movie Major League. Who are these guys? It'll be a little bit like that with him. You'll be the only one at DKR with a Crier jersey. I actually think that's pretty baller, right? Find the one guy, wear that guy's jersey. He's going to play a lot. It's not like you're going to be wearing a jersey of a guy that's just never going to play. He's going to be on the field all the time. All the time. He is the Aaron Bobineau of this year's team, or maybe even like Robert Killebrew. He's just always going to be on the field, even if he's not one of the best players on the defense. And it's clear that Will Muschamp loves the guy. He's going to put the blue dot on the guy. That's who he's going to be talking to in games. Don't return the Crier jersey. You keep that one, man. Wear that with pride. Because people will think that, and I know you're being facetious, but people will think that you're his family. He'll be one of those guys that when you wear that jersey, they'll be like, oh, that must be his cousin. Is that his brother? No, I'm pretty sure that's not his brother. Could be a cousin, though. Play cousin. I'm not sure. But that guy clearly is either in the family or close to the family. Just throwing that out there. I kind of like this. I won't hate this, but I want to see pictures of it. If you get the Bishop jersey with the Batman logo, that'd look kind of cool. All right, let's see. Anything else? I don't know what you guys are doing. Y'all are just talking jerseys. My guy Teddy's like Xavier Phil saying he will be a dog. Teddy, maybe. Got to be on the field to be a dog. He is a cat right now. Meowing. He ain't roughing like a dog. It's not his fault. He's banged up. But I think that safety position is his if he's healthy. Derek Williams is like carved out a Justin Crier kind of a role in this defense. I'd go get a safety. I'm not taking chances with injured guys. And I'm going to tell them that. Look, I think when you're healthy, you're the guy. But you hadn't been healthy all spring. What am I supposed to do? Get ready for Ohio State with a ghost man out on the field? Hey, it's all right. We're going to play with 10. Xavier will be here in September. It's all good. No, they got to put 11 out there. So I'm not taking any chances. I hope you're right, Teddy. And he's certainly he's talented enough to not be the worst starter on the team. Like Xavier Phil-Sammy has upside. That's a guy who arrived with a 5-star pedigree. You're waiting for that guy's rocket ship to take off. Got to be on the field. Same thing with Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams, by the end of last year, they were trying to get him on the field more, but he has to, you know what? Money B, not bad. But I would say he's better than Tucker Dorsey. Look, Tucker Dorsey, kind of the same-ish resume, except he had no power football experience. He was coming from a small school and trying to make the leap up. This is a guy, look, the Big Ten is the best conference in America right now. They've won 3 straight national championships, 3 different schools. So every year he's playing against the best team in the country the last 3 years. I have to go look and see if Michigan State actually played all 3. But when this guy is playing teams in the playoffs, you don't get 161 career tackles by sitting out the games against the good teams. I don't know a whole lot about his career since he's been at Michigan State, other than I can see the totality of the numbers and know that he's played a lot of football. In fact, I'm curious. Let's just do this now. Let me go to Pro Football Focus. Let's look at young Darius Snow and see just what Pro Football Focus thinks about him. I have my guess without looking at it. All right, before I click on it, I'm going to say that they have him graded as a 61 linebacker, which would be serviceable. Here we go. We go to defensive grades. Ha! Hold on, let me make sure I'm looking at the right year. Yes. How about this? Is your boy good or is your boy good? By the way, interesting, these numbers. 61.7 was his grade in 2025. You know, it sucks when the most impressive thing you're going to do all day is get within 0.7 of guessing blindly some kid's PFF grade. I'm going to take it. Small victories are better than big losses, but damn, could have been something else. It's like learning. The one thing I've learned. Okay, I couldn't have been something else, something more useful. Okay. 61.7 last year. And let me see who's on the schedule. He plays Penn State. He played Michigan. He was at Indiana and had a 64.1 grade game score. Like, this is a guy, he played USC last year, and PFF said he played poorly against USC. But this is a guy that has played against, but look, he had a 61.7 grade last year, according to PFF. And look, we know it's cockamamie. But we know that it's AI grading these players. It is not ideal, but it's also not subjective. Like, they have the AI has the same rules for everybody. If it's flawed for everybody exactly the same. It does allow us to take some of their scores and project a little bit of like what it is telling us. 75.2 the year before. 69.2 the year before, 77.1 as a sophomore. This is a guy that's been a really good college player in his career. 77, his worst score as a college player was last year at Michigan State, as I got to look up like what happened. He grades out the worst last year of his entire career. But in the other 4 seasons, and obviously one of these seasons, or at least maybe 2 of these seasons, less than 4 or 5 games, because he still has eligibility remaining, but 75, 69, 77, 66. This is a guy who's played in the Big Ten? Yeah, man. Yeah, he's better than Tucker Dorsey. He is. There's a chance I think he's probably on the level of Justin Cryer, if I'm being completely honest. I say that as both probably a compliment to Darius Snow, but also a little bit of reality with Justin Cryer. Now, maybe I'm underrating Justin Cryer, but I don't even know what this is. Catch ledge. Oh, No, man, I think Justin led himself. But good for Justin. I'm not mad at him. She was tall blonde. Um, not the only things I remember. Let's see. Anything else? There's random chats. Okay, I'm going to end it here. Let me go to Sark's comments from yesterday real quick, because one of the things that I saw in Sark's comments that I found fairly useful was that in some capacity, Sark was asked on the defensive side of the ball. I wanted somebody to ask this question about the offense as well. I wanted to really hear, I wanted to hear some sort of version of an answer that told us who he thought his second best wide receiver this camp had been. I don't know the answer. I would love to know if you took Cam Coleman. The question I wanted to have asked was, if you took the obvious names at each position out of the equation, who are the other true standouts at each position beyond the obvious names? So you couldn't say Colin Simmons. You couldn't say Jelani McDonald. You couldn't say Cam Coleman. No one asked exactly that question, but someone did ask Sark a question that kind of led him down the same path, which was, can you name the players on defense that have been disruptive, created havoc this spring? And he gave us a list. And I think the list is really interesting. You can say it's coach speak. It doesn't mean anything. And sometimes you're right. And I know we get into this position where it's like, well, how do you decipher what's coach speak and what's not coach speak? Who gets to decide what is said is serious and what isn't? Sark's not going to tell us. I always think, as someone who's in the media, Sark knows when he starts giving these names that if he leaves out somebody he knows what he's doing. Sark knows that by giving the names that he gave yesterday, that someone like me would see this list of names and react to it. Because he's asked, who are the guys? So he starts listing guys. What ends up happening is a coach throws in more guys than needed. For instance, this was the full list of guys that Sark threw out there. Rasheem Biles, Lance Jackson, Jelani McDonald, Bo Masco, Grayson Littleton, Murad Watson, Alex January, Richard Wesley. He named 8 dudes. Now look, maybe they really do have 8 guys, not including Colin Simmons, that they've been havoc players all spring long. Or a few of these guys get thrown in there because Sark just doesn't want the headache. For instance, Grayson Littleton has been thrown into the mix here. I've not heard that Grayson Littleton has had, I think it's really interesting. So look, let's do this by position. Who does he call out at defensive tackles? 2. Murad Watson and Alex January. That's it. No Hero Kanu. No Gefford, the kid from Arkansas, doesn't mention him. Doesn't mention any of the young guys. And he doesn't really call these guys havoc guys. It sounds like he was just singling out a couple of guys at the defensive tackle position, which is what I would have liked to have seen again on the offensive side of the ball. But he says Murad Watson. He says Alex January. He could have said others. Those were the 2 guys that he mentioned. If you're wondering in your head who the top 2 defensive tackles are, boom, there you go. Now, let's talk about edge players, defensive ends. He mentions no Colin Simmons, but he gets grandfathered into the club. We know he's there. He mentions Lance Jackson, projected other starter, and then he throws in Richard Wesley. The only true freshman that he mentions. He makes a point to say Richard Wesley, we've had him ranked, or at least I have, all year long as the best freshman that they've had up until this week where I put Dia Bell in the top spot and drop Richard Wesley to 2. I think it's really interesting because who doesn't he mention at edge? Well, he doesn't mention Zena. I think it's really interesting that Zena doesn't get a mention, but he makes a point to say Richard Wesley. I think in the pecking order, I think there's a little bit of like, look, our third guy is Richard Wesley. And maybe you're reading a little bit too much into it. Maybe you're not. I've been known to do it. But I'm telling you, he gave this list of names out knowing that someone like me would do this. And so he wanted to make sure that he said all the right names. He wanted to make sure he covered all of his bases, which is why he initially says Biles, Jackson, McDonald, Masco, and Littleton, but then makes a point to say, hey, and these guys are doing a defensive tackle. And then there's Richard Wesley. We're looking at linebackers, just one, Rasheem Biles. Notable. You want to know why they're going to go get Darius Miles right now? Darius Snow. It's kind of as simple as there's just not enough there. When we look at safety, only Jelani McDonald gets mentioned. When we look at corners, he mentions Bo Masco and Grayson Littleton. Kind of interesting that Cade Phillips didn't get the shout out there. Kind of interesting that some other guys, Smoke Matthews has been creating turnovers day in and day out for about a week and a half now. He didn't get a mention. And I wonder if Masco is the guy that he really wanted to single out, but he wasn't going to leave out Littleton because of the politics of it all. You don't want to leave someone's name out and have their feelings get hurt. And I think, I don't know that Grayson Littleton's been a havoc. I have not had people tell me or other sources that Littleton's just had an awesome spring. So everybody else's names checks out, though. Everybody else's names checks out. Certainly in that top group. Interesting that Masco's a guy that he would mention and that Cade Phillips wasn't mentioned at all. I don't know that that means that they think anything less of Cade Phillips. I just know this. When asked to kind of name the standouts, he purposefully did not include Cade Phillips. There's no accidents. I fully believe the names he mentions are the names he meant to mention. And, and look, he had plenty of time going back through it too. He goes kind of position by position to talk about everything. And, if he felt like later on, oh, you know what? I left somebody out. He could have filled in that gap and he didn't. All right, look, guys, I've been going for almost an hour. I got a daughter who's sick and home from school today. So I got to go be dad and check on the daughter. I've been almost going for an hour straight. I didn't do one of these like little 25-minute videos that you guys like to complain about that I am never responsible for. Like I'm going to come on and hit the go live button and not be able to go for at least 45 minutes straight. Come on. Who are you talking to? It's me. It's me. All right. I'm going to duck out. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's been just a big old healthy blah. It's my Wednesday blah. Just a bunch of UT football stuff. All the stuff in my head. There you go. You guys have a great rest of the day. Chad and I will be along with the OB3 at 3 in a couple of hours. Just Orange Bloods live content coming to you all day long. Yeah. Alex and Cody as well later on. Like it just never stops. Keep watching the videos. We do appreciate it. Have a great day.